The future of Victorian infrastructure is green. Recycling Victoria has laid out a 10-year roadmap to a circular economy, a future where our state's public and private sectors will unite to prioritise sustainability. At the core of this are our public assets, the roads and railroads that connect us and ignite possibilities. But where does the change to green thinking begin? The Recycled First policy. Recycled First will require transport infrastructure projects to optimise the use of Victorian recycled and reused materials. This will see the use of recycled aggregates, glass, plastic, timber, steel, ballast, crushed brick, crumb rubber and reclaimed asphalt pavement take precedence over virgin materials. For information, technical advice and support on bringing your sustainable project innovations to life, drop ecologiQ a line. Recycled First, supporting purposely greener infrastructure.
Good afternoon and welcome to our special edition to the Lunch and Learn series. Today we're going to be looking through some of the tools that ecologiQ has prepared for you. I'd like to begin this session by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land that I'm on, the Kulin Nation, and those of the lands that you are all on. As I said, today we're going to look at some of the tools, and Doy and Lauren will be presenting those tools and we've got some interesting little additions as well. We've also got Shalini, our technical manager, who will jump on for some questions later in the session. Please use this time. We have 45 minutes today to go through this session and 15 minutes as part of that for questions at the end. So please use this time to ask us any questions that you have and we'll endeavour to answer those for you. I'll hand over now to Doy and Lauren. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Cheryl. Hi, and thanks everyone for joining us today. My name's Lauren and I'm Industry Support Officer at ecologiQ.
Hi all, I'm Doyley. I'm the Industry Manager with ecologiQ.
And as Cheryl said, so today we're going to go through the visual guides. So I'll talk to the visual guides and Doy will present some examples and samples of how recycled material replacements translate into real world applications.
A little bit like a show and tell or play school for recycled materials. So I'll do my best.
So first, to get us started, a little bit about the context and purpose of these guides. So following a circular approach, the guides provide support for addressing the reuse and recycle steps of the waste hierarchy, which you can see here to the right. Material and products should always prioritize those higher order applications wherever possible. So we've got 2 visual guides have been developed. So there's one each for road and for rail, and they cover the full breadth of a project. So everything from the fill and earthworks to pavements, drainage, car parking, and then those final outdoor spaces for community use. So for ease of use, they are divided into sections. So we've got things like structural concrete, non-structural concrete, pavements, electrical, drainage, and so on. And the purpose is really to demonstrate what's possible. So from what's already being widely done and is commonly used in projects already, through to what's new and innovative in the space. But they're also a really good way to identify things that might be new to you. So things you might never have thought about replacing with a recycled material before. And you can really see what's out there and what can be done with recycled materials. Finally, they're all designed to be used in conjunction with some of ecologiQ's other resources. So we've got the ecologiQ reference guides, which are our technical companion, and where detailed information about standards and specifications can be found. And then the supplier map as well. So that's a really great starting point to help you find suppliers of these recycled materials. We'll do a brief demo of both of those resources at the end as well. All of these resources, so the visual guides, the reference guides, and the supplier map can all be found on ecologiQ's knowledge share. If you don't already have access, please email us at ecologiq@roadprojects.vic.gov.au and we can set you up. And the reference guides can also be found online at the ecologiQ section of the Big Build website, the address for which is at the bottom of the slide here. So you'll see as we go through the guides that there are categories assigned to each of the recycled material applications. So the green C that you'll see means it's approved and common, so pretty self-explanatory. Products or materials that are ready to go and already being widely used. We've got the blue A, which is approved but less common. So there are a number of reasons that they may be less common. So for example, a lack of awareness that a product exists, fewer suppliers or any supply chain restrictions. It could be a geographical restriction as well. But in the case of rail, many of the products also need to be approved by a rail transport operator, so MTM, B-Line or ARTC. So where something might be approved by one of them, but not by the others, or it has caveats such as only approved for low speed uses, then we may use the blue A besides those. So in terms of roads, it's pretty straightforward, but rail, it might have something to do with the RTOs. Finally, we've got the red I, so that's the innovation. Pretty much says what it does on the box. These products either could be in development by suppliers, they could be in trial currently or looking for trials. So it's important to note as well that when we say approved within these guides, what we mean is that it's approved for use by Department of Transport or Vic Roads, meets Australian standards, or it's approved by a RTO or rail transport operator. Some materials will also require local council approval, so that will need to be sought separately as well. And just finally, do check that you're using the correct guide when you are using them. So whether you're using it for a road project, use the road guide, and rail for rail. Something that might be approved for use in road might be an innovation for rail or vice versa. So always good to make sure you're using the right one. So having said that, we'll go through a few examples of the guides now and point out some of the features and demonstrate the categories. Doy's also lined up some examples, so it'd be great to see what can be done. So the first one we want to touch on here is new pavement, so asphalt wearing course. So as you can see, we've got all the categories listed by some of these replacement materials. So, and then the drawing on the right here highlights, it's the green highlighted space is the application that we're looking at. So you can see there's a bit of a technical drawing here. These are also a really great way to learn the layers of a road. If you, like me, you don't have a technical background. Next up, we've got supplementary cementitious materials in structural concrete. So as you can see, this page uses photographs as opposed to that technical drawing we saw in the last one. And your guidance on allowable limits here is quite broad. So this is where you'd use those reference guides for a bit of further information as to what is allowable for each SCM and in each application.
Thanks, Lauren. Talk a little bit about a great case study that was actually featured early on in our Lunch and Learn series I think it was late last year, earlier this year, but the Western Program Alliance and the Level Crossing project actually pushed the boundaries in terms of innovating and went beyond 50% CSMs in their concrete mixes. The mixes for structural piling, it was a project that was delivered with Wholesome, Vic Roads with DOT, McConnell Dowell and Arup. But what they found there is significant obvious savings in carbon. We know that concrete is responsible for 8% of global carbon emissions globally. So any way that you can replace that is going to be a real win. So by pushing the boundaries with that, what the project had to do was seek approval from DOT, or Vic Roads as it's formerly known, and they were able to come up with a 61% recycled content mix. And again, with that met the performance requirements of a 40 MPa structural concrete. So great case study. If you do want to find out more, you can reach out to the Level Crossings team at Western Program Alliance, and they're happy to have a chat to you about how they went about that process. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Joy. So the next one up is noise walls. So noise walls sit in the concrete category, but as you can see, one of the approved but less common replacement options on the slide here is recycled plastic panels. So this really just demonstrates that the sections refer to those business as usual materials, and then within it may be recycled alternatives which are completely removed from that business as usual product. So noise walls and retaining wall panels, generally a concrete product, hence being in the concrete section, but there's replacements here that are completely recycled as well.
Thanks, Lauren. Some of you may have seen recently the Mordialloc Freeway Major Roads project was touted as the world's greenest freeway and construction project, namely partly because of those recycled plastic noise walls that you see there, which are made of 75% recycled soft plastic. So that's the really difficult to move plastic that you bring to your supermarket. But just to let you know, noise walls, they really are only limited by your imagination. So they've been used previously on the Peninsula Link Freeway, on the Monash Freeway. That's a concrete noise wall, but as those panels have deteriorated, they've been replaced with recycled plastic copies to fill those in. And so obviously from us, when you're driving along the freeway, they're indistinguishable from other concrete products. And for the Level Crossing project, they found those particular panels there are made with 50% recyclate, and the advantages of plastic being that it can be rotomolded, which means it's hollow, it's lightweight. It means that not only can it put away a lot of plastic waste, but actually has a lot of gains in terms of weight saving and safety when handling as well at heights. So, and a similar panels are being explored right now for other projects like Melbourne Airport Rail with elevated rail viaducts. So thanks, Lauren. Another one that I want to bring your attention to quickly is not all noise walls have to be hollow rotomolded. So Integrated Recycling at the moment looking for a trial for their new noise wall. It's made with their own material called polytensylate. So this is 100% recycled plastic. So it's similar to the substance, to the material that's being used to make their railway sleepers, which I'll feature in a moment later. But this trial has the research from Melbourne University has found that it meets the Australian Ausroads national standards for noise walls. So this project is integrated and now looking for a project to trial this type of noise wall to meet Victorian Vic Roads or DOT standards. So if there's any projects out there that are looking to set up noise transmission absorbing walls, this is one to look at. So yeah, another innovation. This stuff is made here in Victoria, and it's can again make a huge dent in our plastic waste problem. So thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Joy. So the next one we're going to show you here is shared user path. And here we're actually looking at the concrete reinforcement. So as you can see, you've got the diagram showing where a shared user path is with your cyclists and pedestrians along it. And then underneath, there's the little technical drawing showing that it's that reinforcement that goes right through the middle there. So this sits in non-structural concrete. And yeah, a few different plastic options as well, so not always steel.
Thanks, Lauren. So at the moment, there's a product on the market called eMesh. I'm sure many of you may have heard about this already, but I do want to take the opportunity to just maybe answer some questions and dispel some myths about its use. Firstly, there's significant carbon reductions in using eMesh, mainly because in replacing steel, which is one of the most carbon intensive products that we metals that we mine for, and the weight of the product, I mean, your carbon offsets are already there. It has been used extensively across Victoria by some of the local councils on level crossing and major road projects, mainly in shared user paths. But it's actually been used for almost 20 years in Queensland, where despite some concerns, they found that there's been there's similar or superior performance to steel reinforced concrete, and there's superior properties in terms of resisting. Obviously, plastic doesn't rust, but also resisting acidity and things like that in any soils. So another benefit of using e-mesh is it is manufactured in Victoria as part of the production of the product. A social traders and a social enterprise called McCallum Foundation package and do the transport logistics for e-mesh. It's mixed in at plant, so it doesn't always look exactly like that bundle of webbed concrete that you see there. And just give you an example, we've got a video of e-mesh being poured by the major road projects recently. So from a workability, basically. I'll get you jump. Thanks, Lauren. And that's the final product there, shared user path. So there are some considerations in terms of workability when using e-mesh. So, and that's how in terms of finishing and pouring. But the important thing is that they've actually found this, the subbies that have been using e-mesh and pouring the stuff have found that once they understood the workability, it's been faster to lay because it's quicker to work with than laying down steel reinforcement. And obviously there's a reduced safety concerns there as well. And you can see from the finish there, if it's done correctly, there won't be any e-mesh protruding from the shared user path or any plastic fibers sticking out. So, and those fibers themselves are actually UV stabilized. So they are expected to, even though they have a 40-year design life, they're expected to last a long time without degrading. So thanks, Lauren.
Right. Thanks. So the next one we've got here is conduits. So as you can see, conduit reuse is approved but less common. Obviously, with all reused products, they must be serviceable and approved for their intended use. And then we've got recycled plastic as an innovation and something that is ready to trial, and in fact is in trial currently.
Thanks, Lauren. So this is what's called a sandwich layer conduit sandwich construction pipe, where that white inner layer that you see is made of recycled PVC with virgin plastic only used on the outside. So this is at the moment approved by V-Line for use, and the Shepparton Corridor project has laid over 130 kilometres of this conduit pipe. And at the moment it's undergoing review by DOT for hopefully for approved use across Victoria. It's important to understand that the reason why these conduit pipes are only 50% recycled, and that's in the center, is because these are what 100% recycled pipe looks like. So at the moment, you can purchase from RPM pipes and green pipes a 100% recycled drainage pipe. The only issue with that is obviously you can see it comes in different colors, and this is one from another manufacturer, the green pipe. So being that you can't control the color of recyclates, the industry has found a workaround in having solid core recycled construction pipes. So that's what those conduits pipes there are for, and hopefully they'll be approved for use shortly across Victoria. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Doy. So this one's conduit bedding. So as you can see here, it's the same photograph that we saw in the slide before with the actual conduits, but you've got a different part highlighted in green here. So as you go through the guides, you'll see that some photos are used multiple times, just highlighting a different section. And again, you've got the diagram here to show where the conduit bedding actually is, which is in this case a replacement of 100% recycled glass sand. Speaking of recycled glass sand, you can also that can also be used in coloured surface treatments and line markings. So coloured surface treatments are very common, and line markings are a bit of an up and coming product as well.
Thanks, Lauren. So one of the ones that you can use right away today, no trial needed. Anything else is that you can use OmniGrip's high visibility surface treatment. This has actually been used already by the level crossing removals project at Reservoir Station. That's a photo there of the surface markings at night. I thought we could do better and actually show you what it looks like in real life. So that's a sample there, and obviously you can make it in different colors depending on what sort of pedestrian crossings, bus lanes, or surface treatments that you need. Now, my understanding is the reason why this has been picked up more is that when it comes to line markings and paint surfacing, that's often left to our subcontractors in our projects. So if you're looking to use this, make sure that you specify recycled glass sand or recycled products as an option when it comes to line markings. Otherwise, I think you might end up with just whatever cheapest paint and line markings might be available on the market at that time. So great product. Again here, OmniGrip, Smarter Light makes them. I do want to talk about recycled glass sand just for a moment, because every time we run these sessions, we do have the same questions coming up around risk and handling OH&S and silicosis. So I actually have a sample here of recycled glass sand. I'm not sure if you can see it there. Thanks, Lauren. Can I spotlight me? Not a problem. Let's see if you can spotlight the screen. Or there we go. So that's recycled glass sand there. I think this can be used as a conduit backfill, as a straight sand replacement. I'm just going to grab a handful out here. Show that it's, again, with this, use the appropriate PP when handling on site. But you can see they are quite uniform colors, and they do come in a few different sizes, so quite comfortable to handle. And in terms of the silicosis risks with this, look, there's been quite a bit of research that says when you manufacture sand, the structure of the sand particles has changed and it's now amorphous silica. So silicosis is only shown to be toxic for non-amorphous or unstructured silica. But in making glass in the first instance, you've changed the structure of the sand as amorphous silica has not been shown to present any risk from a silicosis perspective. Comes in a few different sizes. This is a much finer sample. I think this one's from Alex Fraser. So again, if I was down at the beach, this would be virtually indistinguishable from beach sand. And in actual fact, beach sand has been shown to present higher silicosis risks than recycled glass sand that's been manufactured and treated and processed. So this is it. Thanks, Lauren.
Sorry. I'll share my screen again. Fabulous. Hopefully that's coming up okay.
Yep.
Okay, so the next slide we've got here is sleepers. So sleepers are another one where we've got multiple recycled and reused materials covered. So supplementary cementitious materials in concrete, approved and common. We've also got sleeper reuse. So obviously that would require inspection and approval by the rail transport operator to make sure they're in good enough condition for reuse, and generally just in those lower risk areas. And the third one here is recycled plastic composite sleepers. So this is one where, although they are reasonably commonly used, they're listed as approved but less common because there are conditions or caveats to their use, which can vary across the rail transport operators. And each one would need to approve them for them to be used on their projects.
So this is a real story of homegrown success. So Integrated Plastics manufactured the DuraTrack sleeper. The sleeper is made from recycled plastics. It's made right here. It's actually made in Mildura in Victoria, and it's already been type approved by AmSTM and Beeline for low speed use. So for the regional rail revival program, level crossing removals program, stabling yards, low speed sidings, turnouts, and any low speed application, you can use the DuraTrack sleeper. As so it's a great sleeper in terms of timber replacement. At the moment, it's still undergoing trials with ARTC. So again, in terms of putting away tons and tons of plastic, there's these have at least a 50-year design life, but they're expected to last obviously a lot longer than that, but easily outlasting timber sleepers, which need to be replaced every 15 years on average. So great product.
So next we've got all, here you can see a few different options. So they're all approved but less common. So really good use for good opportunities to optimize on projects here. And Doi, I think you have a wheel stop with you as well that you can show us.
I do. So we have a few samples of these. These ones are made by Plastic Forest. So these are Australian made right here in I think in Albury, so just across the border. Now, again, when speaking to projects, I went and visited a project recently and saw them installing wheel stops in car parks. And we went to ask them, why haven't you considered recycled wheel stops? Again, this is often left up. They said that it was down to the subcontractors to decide what products go into there. Now, these meet Australian standards. I've seen these things installed in places like Kakadu National Park and in the Northern Territory and far north Queensland, where obviously I think they recognise the benefits of using a recycled plastic wheel stop rather than any sort of import, which is what these often are. So my key messaging around this is that it really is, don't skimp out on the ancillary applications. Each one of these packs away a significant amount of plastic. So for me, it's quite a significant paperweight that I don't need because I don't have much paper on my desk. But certainly when it comes to wheel stops and parking bollards and things like that, have a look at that as well, because for those of you who have recycle first requirements, or if you don't and trying to meet sustainability targets, then it's a great thing to explore and just make sure that you're maximizing and optimizing every opportunity on your projects. So thanks, Lauren.
Thank you. And moving on, so we're just going to show you through a few examples of applications where you may not have thought about it and never knew that these recycled materials exist. So soil and mulch is quite an obvious one, but planting edging, so along the sides of the garden beds, tree guards, we've got boardwalks and platforms. So although it's an innovation, recycled plastic has actually been used really quite widely for boardwalks in places like national parks, and you often see them leading down to beaches as well. So there are lots and lots of use cases, but just an example where it hasn't quite cracked the transport infrastructure space yet. And then functional fitness equipment as well. We've seen a few designs come through lately that have a little bit of gym equipment. So that actually are some recycled plastic alternatives for those as well.
Thanks, Lauren. I just want to take you on a quick tour of some of the recycled plastic products that are already available off the shelf. But the key messaging here, again, and when we speak to the manufacturers, they are looking to hear from you what you want. So recycled plastics can be made to look like existing products. And as you can see here, I'd argue some of these are meant to look like timber or made to look potentially like steel roofing for shade structures. If anyone's building a boat launch ramp, you can use them as well. Obviously, being plastic, it probably is better in a marine environment than other products. You jump to the next slide, please, Lauren. But boardwalks, retaining walls, and bollards as well. So this is a range that's made by Integrated. They use agricultural plastic waste in their manufacturing, and it's up to 85% recycled waste. When we jump to the next one, we'll have a look at some of the products that are made by Replas. So Replas actually use the soft plastics that are from the Red Cycle program. So if any of you are taking your soft plastics and chocolate bar wrappers and all that back to your supermarket, this is where this is what it's going into. And I'll point out that profile in the top left picture is actually a profile for I think it's a signaling box for a level crossing MTM project. So it's been used already on our projects. For whatever reason, we're not seeing duplication of this. If you talk about the qualities of plastics, again, it can be made to look like timber, or I think when you really start to embrace the fact that it can be made and molded into different shapes, and that it really is limited only by your imagination. So whether you're doing, what would you even call that, Lauren? Wall tiling or fencing or plant boxes. Yeah, it's the sky is screening. Decorative screening. Jump to the next slide, Lauren. Again, so with all the different park benches and options that are available to you, I think we do want to dispel the myth that recycled plastic always just can only be turned into your bins. So I think you could see here that the range is quite exhaustive, and the options are really, again, only limited by the imaginations of any designers and architects that might be here on this call. So bollards, I know that our projects put up lots of these, and at the moment there's even a recycled version coming out for temporary T-stop traffic bollards. with a company called OC Connections. So those orange traffic management bollards, you'll soon be able to get a recycled version right here, made right here in Victoria as well. So I think the images speak for themselves. Boardwalks, fencing, planter boxes, edging. Yeah, again, if our projects, and many of our projects do have an urban and amenities landscaping footprint. So have a think about what's possible with all these materials.
Absolutely. And then the final one we want to show you from the visual guides is insulation panels for buildings. So this would mainly really be for railway stations, but we're starting to see some really great innovations coming through. So we've got textiles, which is an increasingly problematic waste streams. That we're seeing a few things in development with suppliers. So coming up perhaps in the next 12 months, and then also straw as well. So a byproduct of agriculture, and can be made into fire resistant and acoustic panels, and is widely used in stadiums and concert halls, but it not yet adopted into the transport infrastructure space. But also glass, paper and polystyrene blend, Doi.
Yeah, so this is a great little product that's available right now. So it's called the Caharo coating by Casafico. That is a leveling coat, so it's not shotcrete, but if any of your projects are using shotcrete and you need to do a follow-up leveling coat, you can use the Caharo coating. It can be applied by hand, as you can see the gentleman that's working with it, or it can also be sprayed on. It's made from 100% waste, and it's been used in the Melbourne Metro Tunnel to do some leveling works down there. So again, just some of the, although they may appear small, it's a significant use of really problematic waste like polystyrene, glass and paper. So thank you, Lauren. I might take a moment and talk to you about our reference guide. So Lauren said earlier that the visual guide is best used as an accompanying piece to our reference guides. So for those who don't know, ecologiQ has issued actually now 4 reference guides that are freely available on our website and also on our Knowledge Hub. And the reference guide act as a one-stop shop, a bit of a handbook that's collected all the standards and specifications that permit for the use of recycled materials. So you need to jump to the first one, Lauren. So we have a reference guide in road infrastructure. So this guide actually collects, we've reviewed the Department of Transport and also the Australian standards, and identified all the relevant standards and specifications that permit or that are performance-based that allow for you to use recycled and reused materials. It's a common barrier that the first question we often get is this in standards or spec? And I say consult the guides because a lot of work's gone into collecting this. If you jump to the next slide, Lauren. You can see when you open up the guide, what you'll find is you can look at by material application. You could see what materials are permitted. So if you're out there looking at pavements, you can look at what sorts of recycled materials are permitted. And then from there, within the guide, there are live links, URLs to the actual relevant standard or specification, so you can look up and see exactly where it permits for the use of that. I will add a proviso that we're actually, you probably see these guides were first published in March 2020. We're going through a review currently, and the next iteration, our technical team has been doing a lot of work with DOT and other bodies to reform new standards and specs. So for example, if the conduit pipes that we spoke about earlier are finally updated, you'll see them show up in new versions of this guide as well. And the next version of this guide will also include road stabilization, which again is an area that has been used, well practiced in other states, but hasn't quite seen the same level of adoption as Victoria. And there's obviously a lot of advantages in using and stabilizing and recycling existing roads before building new ones. So next slide. We also have a guide to rail infrastructure. So here in Victoria, if you do want to get use recycled materials, often if they're safety critical, you do need approval and type approval from the rail operators. So so here be obviously MTM, B-Line, ARTC, and if it's relevant, obviously Vic Roads as well. So we've actually collated all the standards and specs and from those operators. If you jump to the next one, Lauren, if you jump into the rail infrastructure guide, what you'll see there is things like, if you want to look up the standard and specification for reusing track or using different sleepers, then again, the document has live URLs where you can, once you jump into it, you look up what application you're looking for, you can click on it, it'll take you to the right type approval or standard or specification that permits for the use of that application and that material. So. And last but not least, I've mentioned before, ancillary. This I call the other. So all the bollards, fencing, everything that isn't road or rail, but has a significant application. So from landscaping to roadside fencing, it's often a lot of the non-safety aspects, but certainly can make a real big difference in terms of using our recycled and reused waste streams. So Lauren, if you jump into the next slide, if you go into this reference guide, everything from signage, pavement markings, pipes and pits. And again, this is collecting all the, not just a DOT, but Australian standards as well for what application and what materials you can use. So I do say for anyone who's looking to use our visual guide to really consult the reference guides as well, because that will show you the standards and specs that allow for the use of these materials. And again, we should be republishing new versions of these in the coming by the end of the year. So next, please.
Thanks, Toy. So I guess once you know what you want to use and you know that it's allowed, the next thing is to find a supplier. So I'm just going to do a quick demo of the supplier map. Now, bear with me whilst I sort out my screen share. So this is our supplier map. So as we mentioned before, it can be found on the knowledge share. And I just want to give you a really quick tour through it. So as you can see, each of these black dots represents a supplier in Victoria of recycled materials. Am my screen sharing the right side?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Just checking. Too many screens here. I'm not sure which one's up. So there's a few different ways you can search. So you've got application category to start when it loads. Here you go. So we've developed this list of categories alongside the users. So we're really trying to make it as simple as possible for contractors and government side, as well as the delivery agencies to use this. So you've got aggregates and fill, asphalt and spray seals. So for example, if I was looking for asphalt, I can just tick that and it will come up with it would just filter down to all the suppliers. You can scroll in and out as you would on Google Maps, and then just click into any of the dots that it might be nearby your project, and all the information will come up here. So all this information here is supplied by the supplier. So it comes straight from them. And then there's their contact details and websites that you can go through to find out more information. So it's not exactly designed to give you everything, but it's designed to give you an idea of whether that is that supplier might be suitable for what you're looking for. And these are all linked as well. So you can click through and go straight to the websites. So I'm just going to hit clear all filters. You can also search by region. Eastern Regional, for example, we'll scroll into just those Eastern Regional suppliers. You can search by material keywords. So if you were looking for stuff made out of, you wanted something made out of plastic, you can just pop that in. Obviously quite a lot with plastics. Or if you were looking for a certain application, so you know what kind of pipe you wanted, for example, and you didn't want to see all the pits as well. Whoops. You can just put the word pipe in and it'll come up with just all those pipe suppliers. You can also search by supplier name. So if you know that Alex Fraser do a product that you're looking for, you can just pop in Alex and it'll come up with all those, all the Alex Frasers. And that's it. It's pretty simple, really. So just going to stop sharing. We'll go back to the presentation very quickly.
You're right.
And Doy, I think you're on this one.
Yeah, I just wanted to just give you an idea. I mean, most of you, I think, will be aware that ecologiQ sort of exists to support the industry, but really it's also there to ensure that when we rolled out the Recycle First policy in March 2020, that we are seeing the outcomes. And I think this is just a great little case study where we looked at when we compared two arterial road projects, one that had the Recycle First requirement and one that didn't, and just seeing the amount of recycled material that was used on the project that had the Recycle First policy applied to it. So in comparison, the other one, we saw 5 times the amount of recycled material overall. So 2.5 times more reclaimed asphalt in the pavement, 65% more recycled glass, and 60 tons of recycled plastic, up from next to none. Now, to give you a bit of context, when it comes to our most pressing priority waste streams here in not just Victoria, I'd say Australia, but plastics, rubber, textiles, organics keep topping the list, because obviously those are the materials that we have plenty of, but we don't have enough uses for. So, and we think the big build and the projects here, and even any smaller construction projects or procurement opportunities, even with any local councils that might be on the call here today, are all integral to seeing that we make value and make valuable use of that waste stream. So the policy is, we're seeing those very, very strong impacts. So. In terms of what's next, so I hope you've enjoyed today's Lunch and Learn. I think we've just run a little bit over time, but in a couple of weeks' time, we'll be having our Innovation Showcase and Exchange. This is our bi-monthly series where we get businesses to come and showcase to you what they can do. This one's a particularly special event. We're partnering with Kinaway, the Victorian Aboriginal Chamber of Commerce, and Social Traders, which is sort of the peak body representing social enterprises, and we're going to be getting those businesses coming to present to us. And and these are businesses that might be manufacturing or looking to enter partnerships with the sustainable recycled supply chain for our project. So please come along to that. You'll meet some great businesses, and through the exchange, we're going to match you to meet with some of those organizations as well. With restrictions easing and returning to a post-COVID sort of normal, ecologiQ is also running our first conference, which will be on the 6th to 7th of September. So the expressions of interest have gone out. It was announced by the Minister last week, so please save the date. It'll be at the Melbourne Exhibition Centre. We'll have a trade show. We're going to have lots of great speakers. And we're going to talk about how greener infrastructure is absolutely the way forward for not just Victoria, but hopefully Australia as well. So now I think Cheryl might be over to you for Cheryl, any questions we might have.
We've got a couple of questions. That's great session, lots of information. First question is using glass for recycled sand the best value use of glass?
Yeah, I'm happy to have first run at that. So a great question. I think the glass that's being used in recycled glass sand is not is made from glass that's left over from the recycling process. So when you're recycling bottles and jars, inevitably you are left over with waste glass that can't be converted back into bottles and jars. And that's what the sand is made from. So no glass is being manufactured for the purpose of making recycled glass sand. It is finding a use for waste that is already being generated through the existing recycling process. So
yeah, we talked about that waste hierarchy before on the highest order use. So obviously that highest order use is to put it back into glass, and when it can't, then that's when we take it and make it into glass sand.
Yeah.
There's a second question is, there's a lot of furniture made of recycled plastic, but this particular project is struggling to find a bus stop shelter for use in the project. Could you suggest manufacturers? We can probably come back to you, but I think there are a couple. Lauren, have you got, or Doi, have you got that?
Yeah, so the two suppliers we mentioned before, RepPlus and Integrated Recycling, I'm not sure if they're making a bus stop specifically, but those sheeting profiles that they're making could very easily be used to make some sort of a structure or a shelter as well.
Yeah. So yeah, with those sorts of opportunities, reach out to us, because I think, and that's the messaging you'll hear, the manufacturers want to hear from yourselves. What are the opportunities and what can be done? So I'm aware there is a trial at the moment, I think, with integrated into for a Yarra Tram stop using recycled plastics. But bus stops are obviously a natural thought. So yeah, please reach out to us, and we'd be happy to see what we can do.
Great. There was an earlier one. I'm not sure where this came about, but it's why does the colour of pipe matter when most of the time they're buried? I think it probably doesn't, but happy for you to take that question.
Yeah, so look, when it comes to conduit and electrical pipes, once they're buried, if there's any future works, I imagine for safety reasons, you need to identify, orange pipes are electrical, white pipes that might be for another application.
The telecommunications.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now Shalini, our technical manager, has a background in piping beforehand. Are you happy to weigh in on this one?
Absolutely. No, but Dor, you've hit the answer, you've hit the spot. It's really for identification, safety, and efficiency, just so that different utilities, different authorities can actually identify the pipes. If there's any emergency, if there's a gas leak or a water leak, once they actually dig up the ground, then they can easily tell where the pipe sits. So in addition to the color coding of the pipes, you even have different requirements of marker tapes and marker posts and what have you, simply for the identification of any underground services. Also because a lot of these services tend to be congested in the road corridors along the side, and they're sort of placed adjacent to each other. So they can be quite difficult to identify, especially if there's an emergency.
The whole rainbow going on underground that we can't see.
I'll also add, I think there's now recycled plastic marker tape for the, so it's when I say there's all those ancillary applications, that's an option as well. So
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That's all the questions for today, and we're right on 1:15. So if there are no more questions, as we've said before, and as Doi just mentioned, please reach out. We know that it can be difficult to find products, and it's hard to keep on top of everything that's out there, and it is a growing marketplace. So if you find something that we don't have, please let us know, or if you're looking for something, we're happy to have a hunt for you as well. And we, as we've said before, we do keep updating these guides. So happy for you to reach out to us at any time. And thank you for attending today. Thanks, Doi, Lauren, and Shalini. And this session will be recorded, so it will be on our knowledge share. And if you want, we can also send you out the YouTube link if you're wanting to show it at a team meeting or anything like that. Happy to do that as well. And thanks again.
thank you. I saw a last question, Nidhi. Yes, we can send you our contact details. So
I'm just popping the email into the chat now.
beautiful.
Sorry, I just didn't see that one pop in quickly.
Not a problem.
There we go.
Thanks, Lauren. Okay, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming along.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Thanks for coming.